With you guys in just a minute. By the way, I did eat the anaconda in the thumbnail, so he didn't go to waste. Don't worry. He was delicious, kind of like really tough chicken. Of course, I'm totally joking. I would not eat the anaconda. Oh, I want to thank Eric Powell for his patronage. Oh, I want to thank Eric Powell. And apparently, my echo also would like to thank Eric Powell for his patronage. And George for thank you too, Charles. You're a patron as well. And I think almost every night you're like, woo. Hopefully this will be a good one. I ended up streaming for a total of 5 hours or more actually yesterday, and I got paid $10 for that. So hopefully tonight people will be inspired to dig deep. Oh no, that's not true. Somebody sent me some hash panda too. I have no idea what that is. I guess it's a meme coin. Hey man, yeah, I know I'm trying to be funny, man. I know that a lot of people probably take it the wrong way, but but yeah, man, I'm just trying to be like. There's this psychedelic style that has kind of been lost over the years, I think. Like this kind of like a reverent, almost cynical sometimes, you know. And people just don't seem to get it anymore. You know, I think I would have done a lot better with this stuff in the 70s or the 90s or something when people's vaginas weren't full of sand and, you know, they didn't itch so much, so they weren't so irritable and sensitive all the time. Um, Yeah, I mean, it's like, you know, I just kind of think in that style. I can't help it. And I always associated it with the psychedelic state itself, you know. I mean, I really expected people to get it more universally. And honestly, interestingly too, my partner Enrica, even though she seems to understand me very well, and she's also very adept in the psychedelic state, um, I mean, I've seen her do some crazy things, man. Just absolutely just mind blowing. Um, what would you call it? Like psychedelic dexterity. Very early on. Oh no, hold on. There's one more new patron that I haven't given a shout out, and I know his first name is George, but I gotta look and see his last name, cause that's just not cool to just not do that. So, oh no, there was another one too. So, I'm glad I checked. Let's see who these new patrons are. By the way, all you guys better be patrons quick because it's the 30th, 31st. The first is tomorrow. If we don't get your patronage now, we won't get it this month. So hook us up, and you do get access to premier content, premium content. And by the way, you know, you guys, I do instruction in like practical magic, and it's not what you think because I'm not like a very wooey person, you know. It's it's not like I saw these guys on TikTok the other day. They're like, just draw if you want to know who you were in a past life, just draw this stupid thing on the wall and mumble this sentence over and over again. It was like, oh my god, you guys, and they had like 50,000 views or something. I'm just going like, man, that's it. If I want to make a living in social media, I have to just be a lot dumber because that apparently works really, really well. Just be really, really dumb, and it's really easy to get a lot of views, I guess. So let's see. Todd Bolton, thank you for your patronage. It's a new one. And where did this other guy go? Maybe he already he watched one secret stream and he's like, man, I'm out of here. This motherfucker's crazy. Oh no, man, really? Is he gone? I don't think so. I think I'm just missing it somehow. Already? But you know, and it's funny because I did see like after the reincarnation reveal, uh, somebody somebody did bail right away. And it's like, man, I told you this is where I talk about the crazy stuff that I wouldn't talk to the regular public about. Like, I told you it was gonna be crazy. Like, why are you acting like? I know there's another guy here. I have to find this, man. What is this? I wonder if it's the same Todd Bolton I know. I mean, it might be, man. You guys must have like similar interests or something. Oh, by the way, you sent the contact to my what do you call it? You know, well, thanks to the other new patron. I can't find his name. It's got like a list of everyone else, but I don't see. I think his name was George something, but it's not there. Um, oh wait, new maybe. Um, the contact info to the Instagram, but it's my old Instagram because when they shut down your Facebook, when they deleted my Facebook profile, apparently I can no longer get into my Instagram, so I can't read my Instagram messages. So I put my new Instagram, which has 0 followers, uh, in the description of this video, so you can get in touch. And by the way, Ronnie, and thank you as well, Mr. Sherpa. I put the Safe DMT Finance link in the description to this video just for you, buddy. So get in there and buy that. We did have to delay that interview for a couple of days because everyone's busy. My family's coming back into town. They've been gone for 3 weeks, my son and my partner. So, Michael Getzinger. Michael Getzinger, thank you for your patronage. Michael Getzinger, Todd Bolton, and Eric Powell are the new guys. And we appreciate every single one of you. Okay, so, wait, who the hell is Tim Henderson? That's a new one too, but it's like he got in there without spending any money. How the hell did he do that? That's weird. What do we want to talk about first? I mean, really, all I really had to say about the Jesus thing, someone sent me a message like, well, and also we had the troll, you know, that was like, you're so lost, man, Christ is the way, and no, not really. But the message was like, you know, how could you possibly take issue with the message of Christ? I've said this before, there's not one sentence in the New Testament that Jesus uttered that I take issue with. That's not the point. The point is that the mind is holographic. And the way that Christianity is taught sort of sets a psychological precedent because, you know, you just repeat these patterns. That's what the brain is, a bunch of repeating patterns. That's what the entire universe is, and the universe is a mind. So there are just all these repeating patterns. And so once you establish a pattern, the structure of it is just going to reform and repeat. And so it kind of requires people to develop cognitive dissonance, cognitive bias, and selective perception in order to believe, for one thing, obviously false things, but just also the story in the Bible. And what reminded me of this and made me think about it and introduce it into the last live stream was this thing about Melchizedek in Hebrews 7. And it's interesting that Christianity is supposed to be a monotheistic religion because first of all, and this is crazy. I mean, I talk about this maybe too much, but if you just learn a little bit of Hebrew, and then just read the book of Genesis in Hebrew, it's just got nothing to do with the English. I mean, it's like, it's not just that it's a bad translation. It is so stupendously unrelated to what it says in the English book of Genesis, especially if you read like now they have like the new translation, which is basically the Bible for morons, because you can't, you know, if there's like a thee and a thou, and if there are iths and stuff at the end of words, you can't understand it, I guess. So they have it in like simple English, and then it's even more mistranslated. So, you know, we talked last time about the Elohim and how it's the name implies masculine and feminine qualities, and the Tetragrammaton is referred to as the Shekinah and all of these different things, and so this idea of like one masculine God is not present in the Old Testament, which the New Testament is based upon. So that right there is like, if you believe that you're supposed to believe in that book to the letter, and it's based on the Old Testament, and the Old Testament God is a group at one point, it's female at one point, it's male at one point, it's a group of men and women at one point. Um, it's that's not what's there. It's just not what's there at all. And so also there is the Melchizedek thing, which is this one of the things that it mentions is that Melchizedek worships the a higher God than Jehovah. And so in the beginning of the book there are references to multiple gods. And so what I'm getting at here is not that, the message of forgiveness, which is the only redeeming quality of Christianity, and it's extremely important and it is underapplied in our culture at large, I think. Our criminal justice system, for example, the idea of crime and punishment is completely backwards. And what you end up with is a bunch of traumatized people that actually are more predisposed to criminality when they're released from prison. And so to me, revenge, like, or not revenge, but like, how would you say, like equalizing or compensating for some wrong should be the resolution of consequence to whatever extent is, or the reversal of consequence, or the mitigation of the effects of whatever the wrongdoing was. And putting someone in prison and having them come out a bigger asshole than they were when they went in, and causing like basically just an amplification of the problem, is not a resolution. And the idea of forgiveness that Jesus was advocating, I have no issue with that. What I do, the reason that I have, or one of the reasons I have such a big issue with Christianity is that it requires people to just so much cognitive dissonance to believe in the story, and it just almost like insists upon a certain degree of ignorance and willful, like subconsciously engineered selective perception in order to maintain your. Did the chat get turned off again, or are you guys just listening to me without having anything to say about it? That happens sometimes. So yeah, I mean that's what. Okay, yeah. Some people last night didn't seem to understand like what I was saying was, uh, uh, wrong. Other than all the people that have been burned at the stake, and the fact that, once you adapt a dogma, a religion, a prepackaged belief system, your evolutionary process stops. Your spiritual growth and spiritual development stops. And I think also there's a lot of levels of giving your power away. I believe that individual sovereignty is the key to uh, uh, like the antidote to the crisis of purpose that I'm always talking about, that I think is like the main causative fundamental in our culture that is, contributing to the chaostrophe. Um, and so personal being empowered as an individual is essential to that. And I think that all of the religions basically detract from that. They impede that process rather than assisting it. It's like one of the greatest ironies that these systems that people come to for spiritual nourishment are actually like a spiritual fucking chokehold that just strangles it out of you, you know? Yeah, I mean, if a religion is institutionalized anywhere, you can bet it's being used for control. Um, Traditional music, I used to play like uh, Balkan music. Um, Man, I was so sad when we came to Ecuador. I got here and opened up my suitcase, and that book was gone. And man, that made me sad because I never memorized it. It's difficult, It's like really spooky classical music, basically. And so yeah, I used to play a lot of Balkan music, but I never memorized it, so I don't really recall. Um, So we were talking about personal empowerment, and this is where we can tie this into the efficacy of ritual magic, even for people that don't believe in magic. And there are levels to this, but let's talk about um, yeah, Balkan music is dope. There are a couple of the songs were actually written by like Western people that had learned Balkan music in the Balkan mountain range, and then they had integrated blues and stuff into it. So there was some really cool, like, yeah, I'll never remember. It's pretty tricky stuff. But the idea of prayer, okay, giving your power away, like if it's true that consciousness has some kind of influence on, if it's really the organizing principle, as a lot of people seem to suspect, and um, that your will compels it to order, right? Which seems to be some truth to that, right? Like it seems to work to some extent. Um, so if your consciousness has a direct influence on the behavior of subatomic particles, which is not 100% proven like a lot of people want to say, but it's definitely possible. In fact, there was a very good experiment done not too long ago. Because of that, the guy was a Harvard parapsychologist, which is kind of sketchy, not a physicist, but he put together an experiment that was reviewed at Harvard, and it got a Sigma 5 rating, which is the highest standard um, that or the highest. It means that the experiment conformed to the highest possible scientific standard for clinical research. And what they determined was that subatomic particles did seem not only to respond to consciousness, but to respond to people that were experienced meditators much, much significantly. What is it? How they say it? Like a significantly, or what is the damn word? Statistically significant degree. And so, yeah, my damn chat is not working again. I don't understand how this keeps happening every night. Um, so Sigma 5 rating on this. So there is, what I'm saying is there is some pretty solid evidence. Another thing that this experiment is evidence of is the bias of scientists, because science is supposed to be objective. And even though this experiment got a Sigma 5 rating from Harvard, which means that it adhered to the highest possible standards of protocol, they're still like trying to dispute it. In fact, one of the scientists went so far as to, not one of them actually, several of the dissenters said, well, there must be something wrong with the scientific method then. So, so that is such a hugely powerful thing to comprehend, that these scientists would actually rather abandon science as a discipline and say that it must be fundamentally flawed, rather than accept results that challenge their ontologies. That's a real thing that just happened. I mean, the fact that they went that far and they were saying this shit out loud, I mean, I think that we really overestimate the intelligence and self-awareness. I don't think are necessarily linked as much as you would think. You would think that if you have very high intelligence, that you're able to deduce all kinds of stuff, and therefore you would, have sort of an intuitive inclination towards self-analysis, and I don't that situation suggests to me that that's not actually true. That you can be extremely intelligent and not really conscious. These things are not really intertwined to the degree that you would expect, or at least that I would expect. By the way, guys, do me a favor and hit the like button, share and subscribe. If you like the content that I'm creating, we really do appreciate your support. You can support us on Patreon and get access to premium content, or we have a crypto wallet address in the description, and there is Zelle and PayPal and email. And no, I told you, man, you sent that to my old Instagram. I didn't know I didn't have access to it anymore because I didn't realize that when I never get on it normally anymore. I mean, I'm starting to anyways. What I'm saying is that if they delete your Facebook, then you can no longer access your Instagram because they're like just one thing really. So I put a new Instagram in there, and you can send the contact info to that if you don't mind, or to the email, the same one for the Zelle and the PayPal. Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, I always thought that intelligent people would have like, a lot of like self-awareness and that their consciousness would be highly evolved, but it's absolutely not true. It's not true at all. They can be totally indoctrinated and totally. It is true that most of the time intelligent people are not capable of being religious. Like really, really intelligent people will know better than to adopt a pre-packaged religion. Because it's just too obviously, like, you can just see what the process is that culminates in that, Yeah. So what I was saying is that there is actually, I just got a notification, so it looks like you did manage to send, so there is evidence that our consciousness does actually influence subatomic particles, and whether that actually means that we have some capacity to influence events with our mind, other than the fact that we can move our hands around and shit. I mean, I think it's pretty likely. I've experienced a lot of things that very strongly suggest that it's either that or there is some kind of intelligence that conceived the symmetry and order in the universe to the extent that that's how we will experience things if we're open to that. And so what I'm saying is, if it's true that magic being defined as the science and art of causing change to occur in conformity with will, and that being the mechanism, if you're praying to Jesus or some other being, rather than just focusing your intent on what you're trying to make happen directly, it's just gunpowder lost in the void, not constrained by the, barrel of the gun. It's just like poof, or, I mean, you're misdirecting it. And so I think that is another element of that, the type of mechanism, or how these religions are structured to take power away from people. I think that praying to something to make something happen is completely just throwing your power away. Because if that thing that you're sending, this hope and this intent and this energy to, it doesn't even exist, nothing is going to happen. You're just willing things pointlessly. So that's one level of, why it's so toxic. And then, of course, we've talked about how you have to develop these like massive blind spots in your perception in order to see things in accordance with the pretty much any church teaching. It doesn't matter whether you're talking about Protestant or Catholic or whatever. they're all you know, trying to represent this as a monotheistic masculine God, and that's not consistent with anything in the Old Testament. The Old Testament references several gods, you know, and there's so many distortions. Lucifer is never equated with anything evil in the Bible at all. The name only occurs twice, and one time Jesus is using it to refer to himself, literally, like that's the second time. And it's not Lucifer, it's just the morning star, but that title is used for only Lucifer and Jesus. So that kind of is like, what the hell is that supposed to mean? And then Satan is actually just it's just like a noun almost. It's not a specific. It is Hasatan, is the angel Satan that appears once, but King David is referred to, if you read it in Hebrew, as Satan. A whole bunch of different individual humans are, because it means the adversary or the stumbling block. It has a bunch of different words because Hebrew generally has layers of meaning. All of the characters are symbols and they're numbers and they are letters and they're hieroglyphs. Well, yeah, adversary, opposition, stumbling block. It has a bunch of different meanings. So there's just so many distortions in the book that even if you're trying to believe what's in the book, if that's your determination, it's the standard, like, accepted mainstream version of Christianity has got very little relationship with what's actually in the book. It's not a monotheistic religion. It's not a masculine God. All of that is nonsense. Satan, okay, everyone is taught that this is he's rebelling, he's a rebellious angel. He shows up twice, and one time he's just trying to tell Jesus, like, look, you're in the desert, like, wouldn't it be better to just, like, go to a city, get some water, get some food, chill out, you know what I mean, eat some grapes, drink some wine, fucking stop torturing yourself, you know? I mean, you could take it like Jesus is being tempted into some kind of spiritual sin, but if you just look at the book, the way that it's actually written, it kind of sounds more like he's having a paranoid psychotic break, and his own subconscious is just trying to tell him to take care of himself before he dies in the fucking desert. There's not actually, like, this voice is not telling him to kill people. It's not telling him to do anything that's actually wrong. And this is supposed to be the most evil influence in the entire universe. It's so dumb that it's like mind shattering that people don't notice even. People don't even notice. They just sit there in the chapel and they're like, amen, you know, and it's like, what the hell? Do people not realize that this doesn't make any goddamn sense? And then even worse, when the story of Job comes along, Satan's walking to and fro upon the earth, minding his own business, and Jehovah shows up and he's like, hey, Job, just go kill his family and give him boils and do all this horrible shit to him. Satan is supposed to be rebelling against God, but Satan just says, are you sure, my liege? You know, and then Jehovah's like, yes. And Satan's like, okay, as you wish, my Lord. So it's this evil ass God that is giving this angel instructions to go and do this evil shit. It's not Satan's idea, and he does exactly what God tells him. So this is what the conditioning and the brainwashing that the precedent that the psychological precedent, because of that works because of the holographic nature of the mind. Terence McKenna and Dennis McKenna were absolutely correct about this, and it's not just their belief; it's actually older than them. You know, I mean, the Kabbalion was written before Terence McKenna was born, and you know, I mean, the Buddha supposedly said that the all is mind. And of course, you can take the statement a couple ways. Does it mean that your perception is all that the universe is? And can't be anything other than your perception and your interpretation that happens in your mind? Or does it literally mean that the universe is somehow like a mind? I think it's both, just for the record. But yeah, so this is how why I'm so, you know, opposed to Christianity. It creates such a toxic state of mind, and it creates such a fertile ground for political manipulation, and you know, like right wingers that are very religious, they don't feel like they need evidence to believe anything. They don't need it's just like whatever a book or whatever they think is right that they've been told they're supposed to think. That's how things work. You just believe stuff because you're supposed to believe it, and that isn't good either. You know, to inculcate that kind of mentality is not. It's not. No good. It's no good. Um, so, well, democracy is dumb as hell, and the reason is, and this is why Socrates hated it, is that if you don't have an enlightened, totally educated, illuminated population, you don't want these people choosing world leaders and making decisions that are going to affect other people. Yeah, well, I mean, religion is not just political ideology. It is also spiritual degradation and constriction and oppression and I mean, it's a tool for politics, and it's an expression of political ideology, and it's certainly used to manipulate people for political purposes. But it's even worse than just that. I mean, I'm saying it is what you're saying it is, but it's also other stuff that isn't good. You know. Yeah, it's really bad. I feel like there was more to that. Giving, yeah, certainly as a weapon. So I don't know. There's the Jesus topic. We got that one. And that's again the one of the reasons for that it's important, and is the obstruction of personal empowerment by also this idea. This is another level of the toxicity of the religious mindset, is that in most spiritual people's ontological disposition or whatever, everything is divine. It's like there was a consciousness, and it just exploded, and from that, which is like what we call the Big Bang on a materialistic level, all of creation has arisen, and so every part is a fragment of this original soul, and so this idea that that this God is separate from everything else, and that you're supposed to worship, which I've never even understood. Like, what the hell is worshiping even supposed to be? You just like love at something, like what is that even? Yeah, I couldn't read that in time. I don't know if my chat's working again still. Yeah, it's all bad, man. So should we talk about heroin now? And I only want to talk about this because I think that some people that probably aren't here tonight took things the wrong way last night. And it's, for the same reason that getting rid of religion is important, changing our drug policy, our attitudes towards drugs, and also the social stigma. The social stigma helps to create addicts. And so, that's one of the reasons last night, like, somebody, I got a couple of messages. One of them was someone was angry because I was criticizing Jesus and fuck Jesus. And somebody else was accusing me of advocating heroin use. And I'm not advocating heroin use. What I'm advocating is reasonable drug policy. What I'm advocating is being truthful about things. What I'm advocating is acting in accordance with research, so that we don't create a toxic atmosphere that drives people deeper into destructive behaviors. And that's what the stigma does. And at some point in my life, I have put all of these things into my body. I've tried everything, and I did that on purpose. I wanted to know what they were all like, and I also don't say that. I'm not trying to. I'm just saying that, in my experience, alcohol, which is legal, felt way more toxic I didn't like being around people that were drunk way more than I hated being around people that were high on heroin. And I think that if people were injecting Jack Daniels, we would probably, it would have way worse of a reputation. So I feel like education, where you know, it, if you don't put heroin in needles, then only like 15% of the people that try it get addicted to it, which is the same as alcohol. So, of course, I'm not advocating drug use, but when you demonize something, I mean, when I used to hang around people that, okay, here's another thing to consider. People think it's like relatively rare, or that everyone that does it turns into a junkie or whatever, regardless of like the neuroscience professor of neuroscientist science at Columbia University. Um, yeah, dude. That's what I'm saying. The overwhelming majority, and this is supported by research, the overwhelming majority of people that use heroin, 70 to 85% of them, use it responsibly. And so, if you consider how many people are out in the streets like junkie, uh, if you factor in the fact that 85% or so of the people that use heroin aren't obvious junkies. Like, I remember when I started smoking it occasionally, and I would find out, you start finding out people around you, and you're like, what? You you smoke heroin? Like, and you're shocked because you can't tell. Now, and maybe it's just me, but if you can't even tell that someone's using a drug, probably not that big of a deal. Hate to tell you this, but I mean, so there's that. There are people all around you that do it that you can't even tell, and no one talks about it, and everyone hides it because they're, people that use heroin are like classified in the same kind of like pedophiles or something, and so that drives them to not get help when it gets out of control. If you're drinking too much and it's starting to become a problem, you might just like walk into your living room and tell your roommates one day, like, man, I really got to slow down. I've been hungover like 3 times this week. And everyone says, oh, yeah, you should stop partying so much. And maybe they make some minor accommodations to kind of assist you. The same type of behavior would help to mitigate a lot of heroin addiction. If people didn't feel like they had to hide and keep it secret and they could tell their friends, that would mitigate some of the harm. So, and I mean, I've seen this number, it'll increase and people will hear what I'm talking about and, oh, fuck this guy, you know what I mean? Like, and that's the problem because they're just brainwashed. They think they already know what it is and what to do about it and what it means, and they don't know jack shit. But their minds have been closed and they're actually doing more harm than good. And so even though it hurts my Patreon balance, I feel compelled to tell the truth, man, which is that, I was addicted to opiate painkillers at one point. But I mean, I haven't done it in a long time. I don't really think about it. But when I used to dabble in heroin, sometimes I would smoke just a little bit, just enough to feel it, like once every 2 weeks or something. Who cares? So what? I didn't like to drink. Like everyone would be in the house drinking, and I would go out to my car and take a few puffs and come back in. And I was the only one that seemed sober in the whole goddamn house. People were leaving, wrecking their cars, getting in fights and stabbing each other and shit. And I'm just like a little bit high. And I just preferred that to alcohol, And, so I just think we just need to like get with reality. And the 80s and the 90s, it's not really people's fault. It's not like people are just trying to be assholes and I mean, they kind of are. I think people have a hard time not using their capacity to judge other people. Yeah, dude, I just have to be honest. That's one of my commitments, and I think like Professor Hart, it's important that people like me that have realized the truth just don't give a fuck what people think and are willing to try to fight these stigmas, because it's just stupid. And it's the black market and it's prohibition and it's the stigmas and the judgment from people that are actually creating the problem way more than it's the drug. And, I mean, I noticed that when I mentioned this, I think people that probably never would tell anyone that they actually think this people will say all the time, like, yeah, alcohol is definitely worse than heroin. Like, I don't think I know anyone that's tried both that doesn't agree with that. And I don't know what the fuck that says about our society, you know? I mean, I think that really it's our society, it's not the drugs. That's the reality of it, because people that aren't damaged, people that are fulfilled, people that live a life with purpose like I did, that's why I didn't get addicted to heroin. I just preferred it to alcohol. I don't want to go to a party sober, but I don't want to drink either. It's gross. It feels terrible, you know? I mean, I just don't like it. And it never got out of control at all, you know? Like, I would only do it every once in a while, every couple of weeks, you know? Who cares, man? And I knew a lot of other people, like everyone I knew, it's true, you know? I mean, like Professor Hart at Columbia University said that they did a bunch of research and that 85% of people that try heroin do not become addicts, that they use it responsibly, that he's been using it responsibly for like a decade or something. And that's true in my experience. Like, there's like, you know, there's 2 or 3 people you know that are junkies, but it's the same thing as alcohol. Your uncle and your grandfather are alcoholics, and then you know 120 other people that are just casual drinkers. You know what I mean? Like, that's just the reality of it. Yeah, alcohol sucks, dude. I'm not advocating that anyone try heroin. You're definitely like, you know, flirting with disaster. I mean, you could be that person, and if you do get hooked on it, you're gonna have a really hard time. But I just honestly think alcohol's worse. And I wouldn't advocate alcohol either, you know? I mean, well, and here's the thing. It's not just that you would be shocked how many addicts live normal lives. We would also be shocked, because we've been lied to so much, how many people do drugs that everyone thinks makes instant addicts that actually are not even addicts, that use these things like heroin and cocaine. And also the needle factor, you know, if you remove the needle, and then if you consider that if it was legal and the price was reasonable, so that people could still work normal jobs, they could still afford food. Um, that's why oftentimes rich people that are junkies, it doesn't matter. You know, it's like a joke among rock stars and whatnot that the only problem with heroin is running out of it. So if it was legal, and people, because it actually doesn't harm a single organ in your body. Junkies lose their teeth and they get sores and all this other shit because of the cut that people are putting in it. People cut heroin with boot polish, and you know, they put all kinds of fentanyl. It's killing people left and right. It's terribly toxic. You can't even touch it. I mean, I've seen the cartel guys mixing it up, and they have to wear gloves to handle it. You don't have to wear gloves to handle heroin, you know? I mean, and that's crazy too, that the pharmaceuticals are more dangerous than, well, actually, you guys know where heroin came from? The Bayer Pharmaceutical Company is actually the inventor of heroin. I used to have an old book that actually had an ad for it. And it said, for that hacking springtime cough, it used to be cough medicine. So again, I'm not advocating for it, but if someone like, if I'm just being honest and someone's like, well, I was thinking about trying either hard liquor or smoking some mild black tar heroin, what do you think is safer or less toxic and more enjoyable? I would definitely tell them to choose the heroin over the alcohol. I mean, maybe I'm a psychopath, but again, the evidence, the clinical research supports that it's no different in terms of the risk. And I think it's important that we talk about this stuff because, as I've been saying over and over, the stigma, it does as much damage as the drugs, because people hide when they start to get out of control, and they don't get help because they're embarrassed to tell anyone that they ever did it in the first place. So we have to just talk about it like it's no big deal until it becomes normalized. Because people, guess what, are not going to stop doing it. That's not going to happen, you know? And I don't know if you guys have noticed that prohibition doesn't work. That's another reason I'm not really in favor of like gun laws, gun control. I mean, you know, you're not going to stop a tyrannical government with machine guns. It's not going to happen. They have bigger, badder guns than you. They can stop your heart with satellites. I mean, super stupid to think like what are you going to do? You're going to take your machine gun out and go shoot the tanks that are pulling up in your front yard? Like, what are you going to do if the government wants to come after you? That's a dumb reason to say that we should all have automatic weapons. But if the government gets overrun, if the military fails to protect us, I mean, I'm totally a libertarian in this sense. I think that if a government can have a tank, I can have a fucking tank. And I think that if we fix our culture at its core, if we really address the underlying issues that actually drive people to misuse machine guns, then it's not really gonna matter who has guns, you know? That's the thing, it's not the guns. And if you think that legislating guns out of the hands of murderers is gonna work, um, you know, the last time they passed a gun law, I didn't see all the gangs like, hey, SA, where do we turn these in? You know what I mean? Like, that doesn't happen. And it sure worked well with drugs, right? Like, we made them illegal and everyone quit doing them, and you know what I mean? No, all that's gonna happen is that there's gonna be a stronger black market for guns. They're gonna be easier to get, because when I was in high school, you know what we had trouble getting our hands on? Beer. We had to like go and find people, and it took us hours. Like, going to get beer was a big deal. You know what I mean? Like, we knew it was gonna take a bunch of time. We were probably gonna have to bribe an adult. But if we wanted cocaine, we just call one of our friends. You know what I mean? So go ahead and pass a bunch of fucking gun laws, and then there's gonna be 12-year-olds with machine guns everywhere, because that's what happens when you create a black market. It's just not the answer. What we need to do is address see what happened to David Koresh. Yeah, that was crazy as hell, man, because that guy, I don't know what was going on in that place, really. I mean, I think they were accusing him of maybe some pedophile kind of stuff, but I mean, they acted like they were terrified of him and that he was going to shoot everyone to pieces and all of this stuff. And they were going to shooting ranges with him. So if you take the word of the government that they were shooting them because they were afraid that they were gonna like do something with all these weapons they had, but yet these ATF guys were comfortable going to a shooting range with this dude, that shit is crazy, man. It's like, there's obviously something, yeah, dude, I mean, I just don't think, like, okay, you know, fight the government, you're gonna lose. You know, I mean, that's just how it is. I don't like it either, but I'm not saying that that's not a reason to have weapons. I'm just saying that it's not gonna do you any good. You might feel better fighting your way out of it or whatever. I mean, I would rather die than just get put in a concentration camp or something, if that's what was gonna happen, for sure. So yeah, man. I mean, you guys hear what I'm saying about that. That's what about these UFOs, dude? I mean, it's been a weird time for me, because my thoughts have been corresponding with things that turn up in my external. Well, sure, history repeats itself. There will be another revolutionary war of some kind. There's no way around it. And people that trust the government, like, that they think, you know, they would never do anything that horrible. That's just not how. That's not real. That's just all. That is your comfort level. That's the level of reality that you're comfortable with. You know, to believe that they won't just like do some crazy shit to their own citizens. People that are willing to kill people for profit don't care whether they're Americans or Chinese, or I think that's the most naive belief. I mean, we know for sure that U.S. presidents have attacked, you know, the USS Liberty was ordered attacked by Johnson. We talk about that all the time. You know, and people that would drop nukes. I mean, the way that people think about the United States government, and they're like, oh, they wouldn't do anything that evil. They are always pointing the finger at everyone else, like, oh, they're terrorists. These people are horrible. Oh yeah, look at Hamas or whatever, or what is the other one? The guys that put the girls in the cage and lit them all on fire. And I'm not saying these people aren't bad. Clearly they are, but none of them drop nukes on cities, right? And that was in response to an attack on a military base. It's okay to attack military bases. They're military bases. That's what they're there for. They're there to fight other militaries if there's a problem, if there's beef between the governments, right? So an attack on a military base does not justify kindling the energy that lights the stars upon women and children, hundreds of thousands of them. Like, your leaders will do some shit like that, and you're gonna trust them to inject your kids with stuff or to make decisions that impact your life in any way, shape, or form. I'm sorry, guys. It's time to overthrow these motherfuckers a long time ago. A long time ago. I mean, I've been scared to say what I'm really thinking, which is another reason why we know that we need to overthrow them. Like, when Americans who are supposed to have freedom of speech are afraid to say things because they don't want to get arrested under the Patriot Act and thrown in Guantanamo Bay. I mean, I'm not advocating violence, but I do think that we need a full-blown revolution. And, thanks to Dakota of Earth for actually saying that first and making me feel like a punk, because usually I'm a lot more out there than him and aggressive with stuff. And you know what I mean? Like, he seems a lot more restrained. So when I saw he posted that the other day as a title to a video, like, I'm calling for a full-blown revolution, I was like, okay, all right, well, then let's just start speaking fucking plainly and honestly then, because that's where we're at, man. These people have got to go. They're not on our side. They're definitely not on our side. Princeton and another university just concluded that the U.S. is an oligarchy, that there is, that, if you just analyze their legislation and their decisions and look at how they act and what they do, they are not acting in the interest of the people at all, that it's totally all in the interest of the elite. Ronnie, were you there when I mentioned, I put the Safe DMT link in the description. By the way, you guys, I know I'm doing these plugs for support a lot in these videos, but I have to for a number of reasons. And one of those reasons is that we're demonetized. Another reason is I got news today that this property that we've been looking for, at the 1,500 hectares in the jungle that we're trying to conserve, of course, this wouldn't necessarily be a bad thing because these people are wanting to start an ayahuasca retreat. And so the land would be protected. But I would feel better about it if it was under my protection. And our intent is to actually put it in to deed it to the indigenous people here. And that's something I'm not really looking forward to totally convincing the investors is in their best interest. But it is. It's in everyone's best interest because it provides an extra level of protection against the Ecuadorian government selling it to the Chinese mines and the land getting destroyed. So it's just what we have to do in order to ensure that it is conserved. And so I got news today that there are some Russians that are here looking at that piece of land that we're trying to get. So if you guys, if you're interested in that, or if you just want to help us in our conservation efforts and our efforts to support indigenous rights, and I mean, we hand out money to refugees all the time here. The email in the description is Zelle and PayPal, and then there's cryptocurrency, wallet address, and also Cash App. Or you can support us on Patreon. No, the Russians are interested in starting an ayahuasca retreat. So that's fine, I mean. But here's the thing about that. If they don't understand the laws and they put it in their own names, the deed in their own names, then the likelihood that that the government could take it because it has minerals, it definitely has gold on it, and just give it to the Chinese is, so they need to know what they're doing. And maybe, I just asked the lady to put me in touch with them because, maybe they want partners. I don't know if they want to spend $650,000 on 1,500 hectares, but, there are plenty of people out there with that kind of money. And speaking of that, supporting us, you guys, I got my heart broken the other day. I'm watching these people playing video games, and it was like a YouTube video of like the biggest Twitch donations, and these guys are playing video games, and people are giving them like $100,000, £1 million someone got, which is like $1.5 million. They're just playing video games. Like, here we are out here trying to conserve the rainforest and fight for indigenous rights, and it's not just us. All these conservation groups and stuff are, it's like crumbs. And people are giving $1 million to people that are just playing video games. I don't know, like, what the fuck is wrong with the world? I just don't understand, like, We have real problems. We have real people out here on the front line risking their lives to try to make real meaningful change and save all of our asses from impending doom. And we have rich people giving $1 million to people playing video games. I mean, that just killed me, man. I couldn't believe it. I'm like, I struggle to get just enough money to make the channel worth keeping it going, and you're giving $1 million to these guys that are just playing video games. It was pretty funny though. When the guy got the $1 million, he just got up and started beating his head against the wall. I guess he was just in shock or something. He just couldn't believe it, and yeah, he just freaked the fuck out. So yeah, feel free to give us $1 million because we'll change the fucking world with that kind of money. I won't sit around playing video games. True story, man. I just don't understand. I appreciate somebody sent me a comment saying, you're not in good health and you guys are struggling yourselves, and it seems like your main preoccupation is like helping other people still. And that's really cool. And so thank you for saying that, because honestly it hadn't occurred to me that's unusual, or I just feel like we have to live with purpose and have some kind of meaning, and I'm always talking about how living for the collective is really in the best interest of the individual. Okay, yeah, sure, all right. The thing is, you got to give me the $1 million so I have a hot tub first. Then I can have a hot tub installed in my electric Lamborghini, and we didn't decide on a place, man. Honestly, this has been just a bunch of chaos, and I honestly, just to be totally transparent, I made a bunch of decisions under duress that I think are finally starting to get us in trouble a little bit. And it wouldn't be a problem if it wasn't for COVID, because I had managed to just improvise a good living. We were doing well for a while. My girlfriend learned to make rapé. We came up with our own blends with certain plants that were not available from anyone else, and it was getting bought internationally all over the place. And I had started to develop a reputation as a very effective ayahuasca facilitator and Wakuma facilitator. I helped a lot of people. Big crowds started coming. And then COVID came, and it just shut everything down. And one of the consequences of COVID is that the post office here in Ecuador is just gone. And the shipping companies are just way too expensive, and they have all these weird rules. So we can't ship plants, we can't ship our rape. So we're just totally out of business. It just shut us all out of business. And then, I've had health problems for 20 years. But on top of that, over the last couple of months, it's just gotten to the point where it's debilitating. Some days I just can barely walk to the end of the driveway, and I'm like trembling and feeling like I'm gonna vomit. So it's rough, And our plan was to come here to the jungle and make documentaries with the Shuar way out there in the forest. And I just got too sick that and we were running out of money, because it's just gotten progressively worse and worse and worse instead of better, And honestly, a couple times we had the money to probably go back to the United States, but we just thought that it'll get better and we can continue with our work, because, it's got to go away, all these COVID restrictions and stuff, and they just really haven't. So, I mean, you guys know that. And so, yeah, I mean, that's been really frustrating, because we were really kind of proud of ourselves and happy about the fact that we were able to like crash land in a foreign country. And I mean, I'll give you guys a little bit of the backstory. My mom had an organic farm in Malacatos, Ecuador, and I hadn't seen her in like 8 years, so I came down to visit. And she was a very troubled person with, also she had been hit by a dump truck, so she was in a lot of pain. And while I was here, she committed suicide, and our last interaction was very negative. And I think that probably affected me much more deeply than I realized at the time. So I kind of just abandoned my life in California and just came down here to Ecuador with nothing. And that's catching up with us, basically. If I had it to do over again, I would have done a lot of things differently. But I think, when something that traumatic happens to you, you're supposed to have like a support network and people to make sure you don't do anything crazy. And I didn't have that. I didn't really have any family ever, and so I think I spiraled out of control a little bit, and I was able to compensate for that up until pretty recently, and now it's smash the like button, share, subscribe, support us on Patreon. The email in the description for Zelle and PayPal, and wallet address also for crypto. We really do appreciate it, and we do good stuff with it. We're trying to. And again, the land, man, I really would like to beat these Russians to it and be able to buy it. I'm gonna go either way. I mean, and that's, part of the problem. Everything costs money, and we just don't have it. Like, we have to hire someone to take us out to this property. And even that is kind of a burden at the moment. But the thing is, realistically, I could probably go out there for the day with gold pans and get enough gold out of that river to pay for the cab and everything. So, I mean, that's really not, yeah, you guys, by the way, you don't have to just make financial contributions. We can work together to with skills and I am not very competent with social media. I need a website. I have a lot of ideas, and I don't really know the practical, the pragmatic side of putting them in motion. And I'm getting more and more connections, and you know what I mean? So if we can all just work together to collaborate and skill share, that would be for Jim. Who the fuck is Jim? That's good too. That's definitely something I'm trying to encourage is people just to try to empower each other, the right people empowering each other so that we can get some shit done before that's no longer an option. Because I'm not trying to be fatalistic or dramatic, but I think that we are approaching, my name is not Jim. What the hell would have made you think that my name is Jim? James? One of my middle names is James, but, So ritual magic was the other thing that we were going to talk a little bit about. I'm not going to talk that much about that because my name is Harley. So, I mean, it's not generally the kind of thing that I would really think much of, but over the years, I have come to understand that, yeah, that's correct. Harley James Michael Donnelly. So I have four initials, even though I'm not Catholic. So ritual magic. There are different. There are different reasons why it is efficacious for different stuff. And I had a really hard time with ritual magic when I started to practice it. And I think maybe it's even weirder when you're by yourself, which is how most hermetic magic is actually practiced. It's not a group affair for the most part. And so, generally what is prescribed is for the magician to do the lesser banishing ritual of the pentagram every morning and every evening for a year. And you're always going to do the lesser banishing ritual of the pentagram. And interestingly, and this is important because these correspondences where you find the same practices universally throughout all over the world whether we're talking about in the Masonic Lodge or in the jungles of Borneo or the jungles of South America. The idea of creating a circle and consecrating that circle and controlling the forces that enter it, and expelling energies that don't belong inside of it, out of it, that is like incredibly universal. The function of the circle, and so, I mean, in an ayahuasca ceremony, one of the jobs of the shaman, and it's actually not traditional for the shaman to try to process the energy of like 30 people at once, or even more. I mean, I've heard of some of these commercial ayahuasca ceremonies where there's like hundreds of people. And I think if there was like a legitimate shaman trying to actually do their job with 300 people, it would kill them. I mean, there's so much crap that all of these people are carrying. To try to absorb that much energy and transmute it would be a horrific task. I mean, I had a hard time accepting a lot of this until I experienced it. But when in the very early days of my practices with shamanism and ayahuasca, I did see that question. I'll answer it in just a moment. I was compelled by an inner voice, and the truth is, one of the other misconceptions about shamanism in South America is that there is an apprenticeship. By and large, that is a trick to get gringos to pay someone for 3 years to teach them to be a shaman. No such thing in the real world. The medicine is the teacher, the plants are the teachers. You did not have someone teaching you stuff. In some cases, that might happen to an extent, but in most traditions, that's not how it worked. And that's one of the reasons I like real shamanic practices as they exist in the Amazon so much, is because they are a completely individually centered expression, I guess. The shaman has his own songs. You don't learn a bunch of trendy ceremony songs from YouTube, like, what is that one that everyone always plays? Schwar song. Anyways, you know what I mean. Like, that's not it. The shaman has his own songs that the medicine teaches him. You don't learn stuff on YouTube and then go and everyone sings the same songs at the ayahuasca ceremonies. It's not how it is. It's not how it's supposed to be. And so I was kind of learning with someone, but very indirectly. He would just kind of give me input if he felt compelled to. But he had this attitude as well, that you don't, what he would say all the time, do not watch the hands of your master. And he had a bit of an ego, and I didn't really think of him as my master, and I didn't watch his hands as much as he thought, probably. And that's maybe some of my ego too, but I mean, it was cute. But on one occasion, I was laying on this deck in the jungle, and there was a girl nearby who was having a hard time, and rather than helping her, the shaman took her boyfriend and left. And for a second, I was like, man, what in the hell is his problem? Why is he? And then I understood, because he had already said to me, you're becoming a shaman, you get blah, blah, blah. And so I realized that he had just left me there with her alone because he was expecting me to help her. And I also think that it's entirely likely that this was not a conscious decision so much. There's something in the medicine, you could maybe think of it as the spirit Pachamama, or the unconscious universal mind, that is really sort of orchestrating this stuff. And so at any rate, he left, and so I set up and inhaled. No, there's not a lot of cancer here, and they have plants for everything, man. I inhaled her bad energy, 3 big deep inhalations, and blew them away. And with each one, did not feel good. I felt like I was turning green. You're super sick. And this sort of thing I was very skeptical about, but I found myself just compelled to do it. And there was kind of an inner voice. It's like, sit up, now breathe. And of course, the breathing is really just a symbolic act because it's energy that you're dealing with. And you feel like you're going to vomit. And the third time, of course, you do vomit because that's how you expel this stuff completely. And when I took the third inhalation that I already knew would be the last, she immediately stopped crying, sat up, and her eyes were closed the whole time. I wasn't making a sound, but she just instinctively knew that I had done something. And she sat up and wiped her tears away, and she said, thank you. And then we talked a little bit. And So that's what I'm saying about when you have these situations where there's like 20, 30 people or even like 300, and the shaman is supposed to be transmuting the negative energy from a crowd that big. I don't care how good they are. That's just not sane. And it's not, that was never a thing in the rainforest with real shaman traditionally. You did not process even just the whole tribe, who were not a bunch of Westerners from a super toxic, fucked up, uber traumatized background. These are people in the jungle. And I mean, granted, spearing raids were probably pretty traumatic. So they did have their trauma, but this is not something that was done for 30 people at once. Okay, so back to the circle. So, we were talking about how one of the parallels, whether you're talking about Druids or North American Native American or South American indigenous people, or people in the jungles of Borneo, or the practitioners of the Egyptian magic from the Egyptian mystery schools, the establishment of a protective circle as a barrier, and the sort of, I guess, regulating of the energy within that circle by sheer force of will is consistent throughout all of these traditions. And so the lesser banishing ritual, for example, which you were asking, like, if how I vibrate the names, you're generally supposed to use as much force as you can possibly muster and completely exhaust the totality of your energy with every vibration. At least that's what Aleister Crowley recommended as the protocol for the lesser banishing ritual of the pentagram. I can't honestly say that I always do it with that much gusto. Okay, so I'm just going to kind of do like a brief overview of what this constitutes, and then we'll talk about why, even if you don't believe in magic, it still could be very useful, even just as like a meditation or a way to compartmentalize and structure your day. And so the way that mystery schools like the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, or the OTO, or the Argum Astrum, or all of those type of schools of magic, you are invoking in the morning, which requires that the pentagram is drawn in the air in one direction, and at night you're banishing. So in the morning, you're invoking all of the energies and influences into your circle, which represents your microcosm, your universe. You are the god of your universe, and your will is equal to that of the Most High God. None of your body parts are really more important or less important than another part. Another even better way to think of it is that they're no more or less you than any other part. So this idea that like there's like this God that is holier that we worship, and that man is not that, is just wrong. It's just patently absurd and wrong, because if there is a deity, everything is a piece of it. And so your will is equal to that of the Most High God, because it is the will of the Most High God, which, if there is a Most High God, its will is totally neutral. It is he in whom suffering and glory are indistinguishable, because it is there for the totality of experience as a path to self-knowledge and self-realization for its own purposes of development, which means that suffering and terrible experiences are just as valuable from its point of view as orgasms and ponytails and huffing unicorn farts and blowing rails of fairy dust. is, you know what I mean? It's all just for the experience. And so your circle represents your microcosm, and you are establishing the influences that you want to invoke into your circle. And so there are pentagrams that are drawn in each of the four directions, and each one of those directions is associated with an element. And then there are nearly an infinite, right on, Ronnie, an infinite number of ideas that can be associated with each one of these elements. So fire, for example, to the south, the god name Adonai is associated with this direction, and that vibrational frequency is fire and creativity and sexuality and you know, all of the shit you would associate with fire. And so as you're going through this ritual, you are drawing in those ideas and associations that you associate with fire when you're facing the south. And then you're sealing them into your microcosm with the pentagram, which is a symbol of protection, not a symbol of Satan. In fact, the pentagram was used by early Christians to identify each other for the first 300 years, and Jesus was drawn with a magic wand in his hand up until the 3rd century in every painting that exists, or every drawing that exists. And they just took it out eventually when they decided they were going to, like, you know, bury the whatever remnants of truth existed in the myth in the first place. And so the pentagram, when it's pointed upwards, aside from all of the other things that it represents, like the golden mean and the divine proportions and the Fibonacci sequence is encoded in there that is in the structure of just everything from seashells to, you know, universes or solar systems or whatever. It also is a symbol of when the tip is pointing upwards, it's the redintegration of spirit or matter into spirit. So returning to God is one way you could think of it. And then pointing downwards, it's symbolic of spirit into matter, which is what animates it. So an inverted pentagram even isn't really, like, people say, well, that's satanic. It's only satanic if you think that material existence is negative. Otherwise, it's just a symbol of the thing that's happening, that spirit is animating matter. That's it. Nothing dark. All of that stuff has been demonized because it really is powerful, it really does have meaning, it really is valid, and they're trying to disconnect you from the truth. And so, you go through the four elements, the four directions, and you use a pentagram and a god name, a different one for each of the elements, to seal these associations. So your emotional stuff that you want in your microcosm is in the direction of water, and then the intellectual stuff from the direction of air, and money and material abundance in the direction of Oriel. And I didn't mention that there's also an invocation of these archangels in each direction, that each one is also associated with, like, being a guardian of the kind of energies that are associated with those elements in those directions. And so there's Michael and Oriel and Raphael and Uriel. And then at night, it's the opposite thing. You're banishing those things that you have, I guess, attracted or experienced, or, you know, you have, like, you get gunk in you, spiritual gunk in the course of your day, or old patterns that threaten to reassert themselves from your subconscious mind. The process of transmutation is lifelong, maybe eternal. And so this process of transmuting the lead of everyday experience and even the lead and darkness of trauma back into light, the redintegration of spirit or matter into spirit kind of concept, the alchemical spiritual transmutation. This process is what you are doing at night with the lesser banishing ritual of the pentagram. And so you go through the whole thing again, only this time you're drawing the pentagram in the opposite direction, and you are banishing the things that constrict your creativity and sexuality and that do not facilitate whatever your goals are in the direction of fire. And you are banishing all of the negative emotions in the direction of water. And the thoughts that plague and that persist that are pernicious are put out of your preponderance in the direction of air. And also there's a personalization that is possible with these rituals. Something that Aleister Crowley advocated a lot was that you should write your own rituals, that you learn them as they are, but then as you acquire facility and you gain self-knowledge and you grow in your capacity to comprehend the symbolism and the reason for the structure of the ritual, then you add to it. And so I have my own, you go around the thing and you say at my right hand, Mikhail, and at my left hand, and behind me, Raphael or Oriel behind you. And I can't even remember right now, but you have the directions with the different archangels, but I also have someone below me and someone above me and someone within me. And I won't speak those names because it's none of your business. But I think that those kind of additions to these ritual practices are very important once you understand what you're doing and why you're doing it, to incorporate these things. And then so that's I hope I did a good job of explaining why it should be really easy to understand how even if there is no such thing as like consciousness interacting with energy and that kind of level of magic, how these rituals could serve a purpose as just a very elaborate and sophisticated type of meditation that can really facilitate your focus and your ability to maintain. That's really nice of you to say. Yeah, I mean, I hope that it's true. So I'll talk a little bit more about one more ritual that I think is very efficacious and important. And this is another one that is sort of universal. There are versions of it that appear in different traditions in different parts of the world. And when this happens, when there is no communication historically or in the present, ever, it's worthy of note. For example, I'll give you guys an example off the top of my head, and that is why. I'm sorry, I'm just trying to get my chat to work, and it's just not happening. In the Western mysteries, we talk about people that are self-serving dark magicians as having chosen or taken the left-hand path, and those that work in the interest of the collective as having taken the right-hand path. And the irony, of course, in my opinion, is that a real left-hand path master would know that serving the interest of the collective is actually what's in the best interest of the individual, and therefore no one would ever take the left-hand path. So it's kind of a weird thing. But at any rate, that's how it's spoken of. And in the jungles of Borneo, a dark sorcerer is said to be turning to the left, and one that works as a healer is turning to the right. And so you have these universalities all over the globe that are consistent in these practices. And this is another one that I'm going to share in a moment. But first, one more time, you guys. we really do need your support. We're demonetized. We're trying to do a lot of good work here in the jungle, and also just keep this channel going. And we get no money from YouTube. And these live streams used to make some revenue for us because there was the super chat, which was easy to click. Now that it's more difficult, people tend to not do it. So here in the chat, I just put Zelle and PayPal email address that you can send a contribution to, or you can support us on Patreon. There's a link in the description, or you can send crypto to the wallet address there on the Binance Smart Chain, or the Cash App address, Illuminostic. We really do appreciate your support if you like this content and you want to see more of it. So what I was saying is that there is the middle pillar ritual, and it's based on what is actually an ancient Egyptian it's difficult to really tell where this stuff came from. Somewhere in the Middle East, Syria, Babylonia, Egypt, the tribe of Judea seemed to have some relationship with it. So we'll just call it Egyptian for the sake of, and it does seem that that's one place we can trace it to for certain. And so there is this concept of these two pillars, Joaquin and Boaz. And this is something that's practiced in Freemasonry and really in any one of the mystery schools that is derived from the Egyptian tradition or the Hermetic Thoth tradition. And so the pillar on the left is darkness, femininity, negative, but not negative in the sense of like bad, but negative, like negative charge. All of the things that you would associate with those things. And the other pillar is white, and it's male, and it's positive, and it's cerebral, and it's all of this stuff. And so in the middle, the initiate stands, and his job is to harmonize the forces from the two pillars. And so in the practice of the middle pillar, we have to talk a little bit about the Kabbalah, the Kabbalistic cross, which is something I forgot that you have to do that before you do the lesser banishing ritual of the pentagram. And it is a old Hermetic prayer, I guess, that precedes it. All this stuff is readily available. Or if you want to learn this stuff directly from me, you can join our Patreon and sign up for some Zoom time. Yeah, the Sephiroth and whatnot. So it's interesting too. We're talking about these correspondences between different traditions from all over the planet, and one such tradition is the chakras, right? And so the Sephiroth that go down through the center of the body correspond to different chakras. The crown chakra, throat chakra, heart chakra, they correspond to Keter and Yahweh. Actually, this one is, this is interesting. There's an 11th Sephiroth. There's 10 really. So there are extra. They don't all correspond to the traditional chakras of the Vedic system or wherever they come from. There's shoulder Sephiroth and feet, basically the Malkut. So there's 10 Sephiroth, but there's actually 11, and one of them isn't usually drawn, but it is there. It's the 11th, and it's Da'at, which is knowledge, and it's invisible because it's not real. You know what I mean? It's not real in the way that the other Sephiroth are real. And so the concept basically is that in the beginning of time, and our correspondence in the material is the Big Bang, this light that rushed forth, the word was the vibration that was created by this emanation of light, which was actually consciousness. And so Keter is this pure conceptualization that had imposed order upon the chaotic energy of the primordial soup that preceded creation. And so it was this thought or idea. And so there are actually three veils: Ein Sof, Ein Sof Hour. It's like the negative existence, it's like different levels of nothingness, basically. The ultimate nothingness that is so nothing that we can't even conceive of it is the furthest veil, and then there's sort of something like a little bit more conceivable, and then Keter is where we are with the third one, and it's like basically like a chakra above your head, the crown chakra, and it actually means Keter means crown, and so the ritual of the middle pillar, where you're harmonizing these forces and drawing the light of Keter down into these Sephiroth, which correspond to chakras. And interestingly, in the middle pillar ritual, you don't actually draw the light into any of the Sephiroth that don't correspond with chakras. It only goes. That's not actually true, Charles. I disagree with that probably more than like anything you could possibly say. That is absolutely not true. The Judaism of the mystical Judaism is the most powerful and real of all of the mystical traditions anywhere on the planet. I don't know where you're getting this idea that I think that the association with Christianity, in that sense, you're right, because I think that, aside from Christ's message of forgiveness, Christianity's garbage. But Judaism, I mean, everything in the Western mystery tradition is written in Hebrew for a reason. For one thing, the Hebrew alphabet, representing numbers and pictures and also letters. When you're processing Hebrew, when you know all of the levels of meaning, your consciousness is forced to work on a multi-tiered sort of protocol that is going to expand your consciousness just processing Hebrew. And I think that their concept of creation is actually what happened. That there was this nothingness that became conscious, and the introduction of this consciousness is what split the nothingness that is paradoxically the only possible unity, right? Because as soon as you have a thing and you have space, you have two things. So the one is none, and that's the only one that you can ever have is none. So, well, yeah, but Judaism, the Judaism, it preceded the addition of all of these nonsense books. And I'm not saying that the New Testament is legit exactly. I'm saying that the Jewish mystical tradition, which is actually separate from the New Testament, we're talking about the Kabbalistic traditions. In fact, this blew my mind when I found this out. Jews actually are forbid from studying their own mysticism. Only the rabbis and the adepts and initiates are allowed to read the Torah and to study the Kabbalah and all of this stuff. So, I mean, Charles, if you're talking about Judaism in the Old Testament, that's a different thing from what I'm talking about by and large. The mysticism, the secret mysticism of the Jews is as real as it gets. And everything in the Western occult tradition is based on it. Well, at any rate, I mean, there seems to be something valid to it. And so this ritual, the concept is that Keter is conceived of as the white light above the head. And then it's drawn down into the throat. And there are, again, names of God that are vibrated, that are associated with each of these Sephiroth. And so when you draw this light of Keter into the throat, what you're doing conceptually is using the divine influence to master your speech, to ensure that you're not profaning the wind with falsehood or ignorance, because everything that you utter, everything that you vibrate is eternal. Everything that happens persists forever. So there is no undoing it. And so it is very important that you constrain your gift of instilling structure into the body of God. So And then the next is to draw the white light of Keter down into the heart. And so you are constraining your emotions and your intent according to the divine influence. And then down into the groin, where you are constraining your sexual energies to be, informed by the divine light of Keter. And down into Malkut, your feet, the foundation, the matter, the earth, your actions. And so the combination of the lesser banishing ritual of the pentagram and the middle pillar are, I mean, as I was saying, even if there is no validity to magic as like a relationship between consciousness and energy, which isn't likely because that's actually supported by science and the fact that I can move my arm around, I think. The well-designed rituals are like, I think, like meditation on steroids. And so that's the value, you know. That's the bullet point of this presentation. So that puts us at an hour and a half. I did say this is an AMA, and you guys haven't asked me any questions at all. So if you guys have anything that you would like before I wrap it up, I'm totally down to do my best to offer insight. Anybody, 16 people, and nobody's got a, let's see, would it be dark magic if somehow mentally trimmed your guitar I didn't cut them because I don't have anything to cut them with here. I don't know anything about the Jews moving to India. The middle path, I'm assuming that you're talking about like how there was the white path, the black path, and the middle path, or the white, black, and the yellow path. And what the adepts are saying now is that there is no more middle path. That because of the extreme circumstances that we find ourselves relating to, it's no longer an option to choose the middle path. That you're either left-hand path, right-hand path, or you're just, I don't know what. There's no middle path. The law of one material, I haven't really read it. How do you know if your chakras are blocked? I don't even know if I believe in chakras. But we could think of it as a psychological thing. So, or you can think about it in terms of energy and chakras if you want to. But I think it's pretty simple. If you are so aloof emotionally, you're very detached, your heart chakra is closed or blocked. If you are not having any sexual drive and your creativity is obstructed and that sort of thing, then your crotch chakra, I don't even know what it's called. If you're you don't have any ideas, you're intellectually stagnant, then your crown chakra is blocked. I've never heard of a gray pope. No, yeah, the root chakra. There you go. But yeah, I think it's pretty easy to figure out if energies aren't flowing where they need to be. And I think that syncretic traditions are the solution to everything. Because, here in the Amazon, the knowledge that the indigenous people have of various plants and how to apply them to resolve pretty much everything. Well, there's always an antinomy, So you'll have an opposing, equal, and opposite for every manifestation in the universe. Can I play Mr. Crowley by Ozzy Osbourne? Fernando, that is so fucking weird because I'm not making this up. I was gonna send you Cradle of Filth's cover of that song today on Facebook. No shit, man. That's so fucking weird that you just randomly. I mean, it's not like we've been talking about Ozzy Osbourne. I guess we're talking about. Let me see if I can play that. I don't know. I don't know. It's something like that. Better when it's not out of tune, but yeah, I don't know. I used to know that song. What was I talking about though? We were going somewhere good with that, I think. Um, I don't fucking remember. Oh shit. Any more questions, or can someone remind me what we were talking about before Fernando blew my mind with that crazy telepathic? Anybody? Anything? Overhead, the albatross hangs motionless upon the air. Deep beneath the rolling waves in labyrinths of coral caves, the echo of a distant tide comes with a wing across the sand. Everything is green and submarine. No one called us to the land, and no one knows the where's or whys. Something stares and something tries, starts to climb towards the light. Strangers passing in the street, by chance two separate glances meet. I am you and what I see is me. Do I take me by the hand and lead me through the land? Help me understand the best I can. No one calls us to move on, and no one forces down our ride. No one speaks and no one tries, so no one flies around the sun. Cloudless every day you fall upon my waking eyes, inviting and exciting me to rise. On sunlight wings, bright ambassador. Shit. Forgot the last verse, man. Oh well. So what were we talking about? I don't even know why I did that, really. Mr. Crowley. It always drove me nuts that he's English and he pronounces that incorrectly in that song. Not cool, man. Not cool. It's Crowley. It's literally crow-like. I can't believe you did that, Fernando. I actually had Facebook open, and I was opening YouTube to copy the Mr. Crowley, the Cradle of Filth And I'll give you a hint as to why. You aren't able to access the Patreon, and there's something you were very curious about. Who, Pink Floyd? Yeah, well, I mean, man, there's all of the great art basically in human history that we are aware of was all created by people that were really fucking high on drugs. You know, the comedian Bill Hicks, really famous bit that he did where he's like, you know, people all, yeah, I think drugs have done good things for us. And if you don't think so, go home and take your entire record collection, your CD collection, and burn it. Because the musicians that made all the songs that have gotten you through your life were really fucking high on drugs. And it's true, you know, I mean, and even the really bad drugs are the ones that people say are really bad. You know, if you look through all the greatest ones that kids still listen to from the 70s and stuff, they were all on heroin when they made them. I mean, every single fucking one of them. So, I mean, yeah, it's a thing for sure. It's definitely a thing. For good or for bad, that's just it's all, how it's always been. All right, so we talked about Jesus. We talked about heroin. We talked about politics. We talked about UFOs a little bit, although I think I got a little sidetracked there. What has been killing me lately is how I will kind of like think about things and I'm seeing them in the media and stuff like the next day a lot. And I think that these synchronicities have always preceded major events for me. So I really feel like there's a snowball that is accumulating mass and speed, and it's about to hit the wall. And what I saw yesterday is that the US, China, and Russia have all said that they've been shooting at the same UFOs. So if that's true, oh, and Russia says they've lost pilots, that they've actually had casualties in the fights with the UFOs. So suddenly we have like world governments all over the planet saying like we're actually shooting at UFOs and they're not and China's like so are we and Russia's like so are we. So basically if they're not US top secret craft and they're not Chinese top secret craft and they're not Russian top secret craft, they're certainly not being made in fucking Mexico. So that pretty strongly implies that they're of alien origin. And I feel like, you know, my experience of like this universal mind that exists in the universe, that the universe is basically, I think, fundamentally, is that there's like this like microcosmic communication and then the macrocosmic level of it. And so, for example, uh, it's like a confirmation for me to see Dakota of Earth posting a video about these Native Americans that he met in New Mexico that were telling him about the Star Tribes and giving him the same exact details that I got from a completely different group of Native Americans in New Mexico 11 years ago with the same description of why the Star Tribes are here, you know, and that coincidence corresponds, so that's the micro level, my personal level, with the macro level of the situation, which is the global, you know, thing with the Chinese and the Russians and the U.S. all saying that they've been shooting at the same UFOs. So my inclination is to suspect that because also the acknowledgement, I guess, from the authorities or whatever you want to call them on this subject is getting progressively more intense very, very rapidly. I would expect some major development of you know, catastrophic proportions very, very soon. Uh, so aliens, and that would be very helpful because that will disrupt a lot of religious fundamentalism. Um, yeah, well, of course you shouldn't trust anything the government tells you. What kind of things have you done with the LBRP? I don't know if you're still there, Mr. Charles. I'm sorry I didn't see that until just now. But well, Fernando, that's kind of what I was just saying, like how I think it would affect. Um, it's gonna fucking be great. I mean, for one thing, if my experiences are real, and seeing Dakota of Earth talking to like Native Americans that were not even the same tribe as the ones I talked to, that were telling me all the same shit about these aliens, like that was, really kind of a big deal because I realized that it's not like it was just like this group of Native Americans got together and conspired to like trick us or something, like, because they were they were from different places and different tribes and they all were in agreement, but they were also together. Uh, and all the other stuff that I experienced around that time period did, support what their message was about the Star Tribes, and a lot of the experiences I've had after the fact. Um, but seeing this totally unrelated tribe that Dakota was interviewing and how similar what they were saying was, it's like they're here to help us evolve our consciousness because the evolution of consciousness is what is the antidote to the atom bomb. It's how we circumvent our inevitable destruction at this point. I mean, you're not a doomsday nut at this point if you're like, we're about to all fucking die. It's not dramatic, it's not over the top, it's science. Like, there's 10% of the ocean life is from 1970 is still there. 90% of it is gone. Uh, the ocean feeds a lot of people. I mean, we're in deep shit, and the only way to turn it around is something on that scale. And it does seem that these aliens that are here are their only purpose is to catalyze the evolution of our consciousness and accelerate it because it's really only uh, falsehood and deliberate um, deliberate influences that have distorted our perception and and influenced our ontologies, with the religions and just the divide and conquer strategy of the elites and whatnot. Um, it's not natural. It's not organic. Like I'm always saying, the tendency of things in the universe is systems in the universe is to come to homeostasis, and if that's not happening with the human race relative to each other and our environment, it's because somebody's shaking the fucking ant farm. And I think that, in my experience, these star tribes are not even physical beings, really. I mean, they probably are somewhere and they've just sent their astral bodies here, which, by the way, the CIA also recently released some papers saying that astral travel is real and that the universe is like an energy hologram, which is totally consistent with this idea I was talking about earlier of how the universe is a mental construct and the mind is holographic and therefore the universe is holographic. Apparently, the CIA is in accordance with that. The answer to your question, Mr. Charles, is that the lesser banishing ritual of the pentagram is not really actually for anything. I mean, it's for your own purposes. It's for regulating the energy in your universe. It is for, imposing your will upon the energy. It's your consciousness is the organizing principle. It is the God in your domain, your energetic domain, and so it is an acknowledgement of that power and prowess. And well, I mean, Charles, that's not what that's not what all of these different Native American tribes that have never even talked to each other say. And so, and in my experience, it's not a thing that they don't care. I care, and the reason is that gnosis, when you evolve your consciousness, you are not cynical. It's the antidote to cynicism. So if there is a race of enlightened beings that are 300 million years older than us or whatever, it's a good bet that they actually do care about life, all life forms, because that's what happens when you achieve enlightenment. So I'm afraid I'm going to have to disagree on that point, just as much as I disagreed with the comment about the Jewish mysticism. But Mr. Charles, I will tell you though that something happened during the course of my early development while using the lesser banishing ritual of the pentagram that's extremely important. But I can't tell you all the details because it would ruin it for you. And that's actually one of the reasons for secrecy in these traditions. It's not just about keeping power and keeping the plebes in ignorance, and not giving the profane access to power that they can't control, although all of those things can be part of it. One of the reasons for the secrecy is that you will interfere with the organic gnosis of other people by introducing ideas into their consciousness. And then if they're experiencing these things through their own processes, they can't really be sure if it's just because an idea was introduced into their consciousness by someone else. And you don't want that. And so, you understand what I'm saying? Like, you don't want to exert undue influence on the initiate or the neophyte in that way. And so, but what will happen is that you'll be given a sealed envelope, and you start performing the banishing ritual, and you keep a magical diary. Every magician has to do this, and you record all of your dreams every time you wake up, because you're just in the same way that magic mushrooms facilitate communication between normally non-communicative parts of the brain. One of your goals with ritual magic is to establish that same communication within your brain. In fact, Aleister Crowley was put on the list of the 100 most important Britons of all time. And when I saw that, I was like, what the fuck? Why would they put this guy that called himself the Antichrist and signed letters 666 on that list? Like, that's a weird fucking move for the crown to make. And their reasoning, officially, what they wrote on the list was that he had mapped hitherto unknown parts of the human brain. Well, yeah, I mean, who knows, man? I wouldn't be surprised of any level of manipulation on the part of the government. But the concept that there are benign beings of that are infinitely more evolved than us, I've seen evidence of that's hard for me to disbelieve. And trust me, I tried. I really tried, because it's one thing to believe in these things as like a new age kind of abstract, like, sort of imaginal thing. But when you actually have experiences of it directly, man, it at least for me, it was more difficult than I would have expected. I thought I would have taken it in stride a lot more than I actually did. But okay, so what happens is that one of the archangels in particular, you will see in your mind's eye, because while you're doing the lesser banishing ritual of the pentagram, and particularly during the invocation of the archangels, you have to picture the archangels, and they're wearing certain robes, colors of robes with certain symbols, and so part of it is just, even if it's totally your imagination and there are no archangels, or they're just symbolic of some emanation of consciousness or some archetype, it doesn't matter. In fact, in the beginning of Magic and Theory and Practice by Aleister Crowley, he says, this is a book of spells and sephiroth and archangels and angels and demons and dimensions and other things which may or may not exist. It is immaterial whether they actually exist or not. All that matters is if you do certain things, certain results will follow. That's all. You don't need to worry about whether this shit is objectively real. Just, So anyways, in association with one of the archangels, you'll see a multitude of things that are totally unrelated to any symbolism that is present in what you're imaging in your head. and that happened, and your whoever's directly above you, it reads your magical journal where you write everything that happens in your head during your rituals, all of your sensations. You're even supposed to track like astronomical, like what where the planets are, and just all every detail that you can think of. And the reason is that you're creating a dialogue between the conscious and the unconscious, partly. But so I suddenly saw all of these things in association with one of the archangels, and the person above me said, "Okay, you can open the sealed letter now." And it said, "Congratulations, you have had the vision of this," and it described it exactly. And so that compels you to ask some pretty serious questions, like how in the fuck does that happen? Like, why would going through these motions and visualizing certain things, uh, you eventually they just know that you're going to see this other stuff in conjunction with this one archangel? You know what I mean? So it sort of also like shows you that there's something happening with it. That no, they're archangels, and it's not they're from the Jewish mystical tradition. It's Michael, Oriel, Raphael, um, and Gabriel, and yeah. So anyways, 2 hours, man. I'm exhausted. Do me a favor, hit the like button, share, subscribe, support us on Patreon for premium content, and links in the description for PayPal and Zelle. And you can send us crypto to the wallet address. We really do appreciate your support. And good night, folks. Bleep, bleep, bleep. That's all.